You are now listening to Mark's Unexplained World by Mark the Medium, available on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Prime, Podbean, and most other podcast platforms. Tonight's episode is about the twisted story of Samantha Azzopardi. So it's over to you now, Mark, for this week's Identity Crisis tale.
Samantha Lyndell Azzopardi, who was born on the 21st of August in 1988, is an Australian con artist who has been accused of many instances of conning both families and authorities, not just in her native country of Australia, but also in Ireland and Canada. During the October of 2013, Samantha Azzopardi was found wandering up and down outside of a general post office, or the GPO for short, in Dublin, Ireland, apparently being unable to speak any English. Hence, from then on, she was then known as the GPO girl. The police in Ireland originally believed that not only was she the victim of sex trafficking, but they also believed that she was only around 14 years of age, when in fact at that time she was about 25. Years later, in 2023, after she had served a prison sentence of 2 years in the New South Wales, Australia, Samantha Azzopardi then claimed to be a 17-year-old Belgian victim of domestic violence named Hetty Lee, and was then able to obtain $20,000 worth of aid from Family Violence Support Services. Now, at the time of researching for this podcast, aged 36 and free from any prison time, it has been reported that Samantha Azzopardi has been diagnosed with a borderline personality disorder alongside a rare psychiatric syndrome called pseudologia fantastica, which is a condition where patients represent fantasies as real occurrences. Greetings, Unexplainers. Thank you for tuning in once again and listening to this Now You See It, Now You Don't episode of Mark's Unexplained World. My name is Mark Hughes. I'm a medium, a ufologist, a true crime buff, a man with a very dark and disturbed sense of humour, and an optimist who believes that we live in the best world when a pessimist is afraid that it might be true. But to give you a better idea of who I am and what I do, every week, usually on a Tuesday night, though occasionally on a Wednesday, allowing for bank holidays and busy weekends, I do a podcast on the many wide and various subjects that fall under the Unexplained banner. These include ufology, hauntings, disasters, and all sorts of other paranormal phenomena, including true crime, unsolved crime, serial killers, and the darker side of some past celebrities, and the occasional missing person that often goes unnoticed. So if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review or an opinion of the episode subject that I can reply to. A thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell. Or if you are listening on any of the other podcast platforms, again, give us a like and a follow. And if you do get a few minutes, perhaps you might like to check out my social media groups and pages, including Facebook, Instagram or TikTok, which are filled daily with all things unexplained and crime. I'll put the links to some of my socials in the description. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about the swindling tale surrounding the twisted story of Samantha Azzopardi. And this week's necessary disclaimer. Well, this story is a tale that has themes of poor mental health and domestic abuse, so may prove upsetting to some. As usual, you listen at your own discretion. Also, all opinions and comments are strictly my own, but the facts of the case still remain. I also apologise if I pronounce anything incorrectly. My English, although it is my first and only language, is a constant reminder that my job is secure, simply because no one else wants it. But anyway, let us get back to the story, shall we? Just to give you fair warning here, listeners, this episode is going to be a bumpy ride, so hold on to something tight. Here goes. Samantha Lyndell Azzopardi, who came into the world on the 21st of August in 1988 and was thought to be of Maltese descent, was born to a middle-class family in Campbelltown, New South Wales in Australia, where she attended the Mount Annan High School. In her later life, Samantha Azzopardi would go on to dupe many people, which included police officers and other authorities beyond her hometown, eventually extending her web of lies and deceit far across Australia, Ireland and Canada, where she would scam people into believing the various fake identities that she had made up for herself. Samantha Azzopardi first came to the attention of the Rockhampton authorities in Queensland, Australia during the November of 2007 when she was just 19 years old, claiming to be an American actress, Dakota Johnson, and was so consequently charged with the intent to defraud. And in the September of 2010, she came to the authorities' attention again when she tried to enrol in at least 2 schools in Brisbane, posing as a student, but was rejected from the second school when her reference letter was found to be fraudulent. And so yet again, consequently, she was charged with falsely representing herself with the intention to defraud. But her story doesn't stop there. Oh no, there is still plenty more of this bumpy ride to come. In 2011, Samantha Azzopardi pretended to be a 15-year-old Russian gymnast named Emily Skiberas, who claimed that her entire family was killed in a murder-suicide, and so, after taking pity on her, a family, whose name appears to be anonymous, welcomed her into their home, even offering to adopt her after hearing her sad story. That was until suspicious documents that arrived during the adoption process revealed that she wasn't who she claimed to be. Couldn't catch a break, eh, girl? In the October of 2013, Samantha Azzopardi was found by the Irish police detective David Gallagher outside of the General Post Office, or the GPO for short, in Dublin, Ireland, wandering up and down the road and apparently unable to speak any English. And so it was at this point that she came to be known as the GPO girl. Due to her looking distressed and refusing to speak, 2 police officers then took her to the Temple Street Hospital, where she stayed for weeks. However, due to her still not saying a word, all that time under medical care, the authorities began to fear that maybe she was a victim of human or sex trafficking. And although she never told anyone her age, she indicated through hand signals that she was 14 years old. Detective David Gallagher said at the time that there were always questions over her age and that he never expected her to be entirely ungenuine. He also said, and I quote, "There was no end game. She was put in a children's hospital, not eating, not talking. It wasn't fun." So the hunt was on for the Irish police, or the Garda, to find out the background for what they were led to believe was a 14-year-old girl who had possibly been the victim of human or sex trafficking. Police investigators examined CCTV footage, carried out door-to-door inquiries, worked with child welfare specialists, reached out to Missing Persons Services, Interpol, a forensic science laboratory, the Immigration Bureau and the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Unit, but all to no avail. Noticing that she had braces on her teeth, which had been fitted recently, the Garda then contacted paediatric orthodontists across the country to see if any of them remembered her. However, again, to no avail. As she was deemed to be a minor, i.e. believing her to be 14 years of age, of course, the investigation unit ended up seeking special permission from the High Court to share her picture during a public plea for any information regarding her identity. After this first short break, in part 2, we will look at Samantha Azzopardi's continuing exploits, and what it means to be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder alongside pseudologia fantastica.
This show is brought to you courtesy of Neil Packer and the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre. Find them online at www.hauntedresearchcentre.com or at 9 to 11 Regent Street, Hinckley, LE10 1AW. Open on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for guided tours of the haunted rooms at just £3 per person. Booking is essential at all times, and over 16s only, please, unless accompanied by an adult. The haunted rooms are extremely haunted, and paranormal activity could and has taken place at any time. Some areas and particular objects or items can be quite scary and unnerving. Membership is available for £25 to qualify for selective offers. And why not download the app, available on both iOS and Android, for only $3.99. to keep up to date with what is coming up at the centre.
When the Garda officers in Ireland originally took what they believed to be a 14-year-old girl to Temple Street Children's Hospital in Dublin, upon meeting her for the first time, the detectives noticed 3 things about her. 1, she appeared to be around 14 to 19 years of age. 2, she wore braces. And 3, she was actively trying to conceal her identity from them by covering her face with her hair. Nevertheless, despite these 3 things, and after a short time at the Temple Street Children's Hospital, the girl then started to draw stick figures, and upon looking at her drawings, there was one sketch that particularly concerned authorities, and that was when she drew a plane and a gun, with the authorities now believing that she was trying to say she had been the victim of sex trafficking. The other main concern for her by authorities was as to why she wasn't speaking, and whether this was due to either being traumatised, a language issue, or that she just couldn't talk at all. Nonetheless, and after a short time, she was eventually recognised by a family contact that she had been staying with at the start of her trip to Ireland. And not only that, but the Garda also got a lead from the police in Western Australia, who said they thought that they knew who the girl was. So, soon after her identification was confirmed, meaning that the GPO girl wasn't an endangered teenager after all, but a 25-year-old Australian woman named Samantha Azzopardi from Sydney's outer suburbs, she was put back on a flight to Australia, escorted by the police, staying totally silent throughout her journey. With the Detective Superintendent David Gallagher saying regarding the Samantha Azzopardi case, and I quote, "When the truth of her situation and age became known, this divided opinion within those in the investigation team and those managing this investigation." He continues, and again I quote, There were calls from some to move to a criminal investigation for wasting police time by making false reports, while others, including myself, felt that in a legal sense, she was in fact never made any statement or false report, as she had never spoken. The matter should be treated as a mental health and welfare issue. Samantha Azzopardi did undergo a mental health assessment at the time, but it was concluded that her issues were not deemed to be of a level to require intervention. And just a short note here, when Samantha Azzopardi was subsequently sent back to Australia, not only did it end up costing around 2,000 hours of police time, it also cost $250,000, which included the flights, all paid for by the Irish taxpayer. But yet again, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Come forward about a year to the September of 2014, and Samantha Azzopardi decided what a great idea it would be to walk into a health centre in Calgary in Canada and claim that she was a 14-year-old victim of sexual assault and abduction under the name of Aurora Hepburn, when she was in fact 26 years old at the time. The Canadian police and healthcare workers spent weeks assembling a case costing an estimated 150,000 Canada dollars until someone discovered the Dublin Island story and made a connection and informed of her identity. And so, consequently, Samantha Azzopardi was convicted on a mischief charge for misleading Calgary police. Kelly Campbell of the police's child abuse unit said of this Azzopardi situation, and I quote,
"There was considerable impact to a lot of the professionals that were working on this investigation, as we were led to believe that this was an actual occurrence, and our concern was that there were victims that were still out there. More victims."
In the December of 2014, the Canadian court sentenced her to 2 months detention, which she had already served, and deported her back to Australia a week later, accompanied by a Canadian Border Services Agency officer, so that she did not disappear on the way. Two years later, in late 2016, Samantha Azzopardi enrolled at the Good Shepherd School at Marrickville in New South Wales, Australia, claiming to be a 13-year-old girl named Harper Hart, although in truth she was now 27 years old. At that time, she had been found by a couple in the street in Auburn in Sydney's western suburbs, so they decided to take her in, figuring that she needed their help, saying, and I quote,
"We thought she was a young girl."
Samantha told them that she was on a US witness protection program and that she was hiding from a situation where she had been sexually abused. So, believing her every word, they decided to help her out by putting her into the school in Marrickville, which is which is for disadvantaged kids who also have educational issues. However, months later, while she was still attending this school, and with the school feeling that something felt a little bit off about her, they requested from her both her birth and medical certificates, as they were needed for their school records. However, she wasn't very forthcoming, so in the June of 2017, she was charged with dishonesty, obtaining financial advantage by deception, and for the education, counselling, food, accommodation and electronics that she was given while posing as this 13-year-old Harper Hart. And after pleading guilty, Samantha Azzopardi was sentenced to a year in prison. Before I continue with the escapades of Samantha Azzopardi, I want to look at both her possible diagnosis of borderline personality disorder and pseudologia fantastica, which is the rare psychiatric syndrome in which patients represent fantasies as real occurrences. Obviously, I'm not a doctor or psychiatrist, so if you do feel, or if you feel you need some form of help with any of these disorders, please contact your GP. According to Wikipedia, borderline personality disorder, or BPD for short, is a personality disorder characterised by a pervasive long-term pattern of significant interpersonal relationship instability, an acute fear of abandonment, along with intense emotional outbursts. People diagnosed with BPD frequently exhibit a self-harming behaviour and engage in risky activities primarily due to challenges regulating emotional states to a healthy, stable baseline. Symptoms such as dissociation, otherwise known as a feeling of detachment from reality, a pervasive sense of emptiness, and a distorted sense of self are prevalent among those affected. The onset of BPD symptoms can be triggered by events that others might perceive as normal, with the disorder typically manifesting in early adulthood. But the causes of BPD are unclear and complex, implicating genetic, neurological and psychosocial conditions in its development. The current hypothesis suggests that borderline personality disorder is caused by both the interaction between genetic factors and adverse childhood experiences, with it being significantly more common in people with a family history of BPD, particularly immediate relatives, which suggests a possible genetic predisposition to it. So, what of pseudologia fantastica? Well, again, according to Wikipedia, pseudologia fantastica, which is also known as pathological lying, is a chronic behaviour characterised by the habitual or compulsive tendency to lie. It involves a pervasive pattern of intentionally making false statements with the aim to deceive others, sometimes for no clear or apparent reason, even if the truth were beneficial to the liar. With some people who engage in pathological lying often reporting that they themselves are unaware of the motivations for their own lies. In both psychology and psychiatry, there is an ongoing debate about whether pathological lying should be classified as a distinct disorder or viewed as a symptom of other underlying conditions, with the lack of widely agreed upon description or diagnostic criteria for pathological lying being contributed to the controversy surrounding its definition. Although efforts have been made to establish a diagnostic criteria based on research and assessment data, aligning with the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Various theories have been proposed to explain the causes of pathological lying, including stress, an attempt to shift focus of control to an internal one, and issues related to low self-esteem, while other theories have explored potential causes. The precise factors contributing to pathological lying have yet to be determined. The pseudologia fantastica phenomena was first described in medical literature in 1890 by G. Stanley Hall and in 1891 by Anton Delbruck. After this second short break, in part 3, we will go back to a few more of Samantha Azzopardi's escapades, the trials she faced, and where she might possibly be today.
Fright Nights was established in 1999 as the first company in the world to offer overnight ghost hunt experiences to the general public, pioneering paranormal events since the last century. Fright Nights operate at hundreds of the UK's most haunted and exclusive venues, All events have their own team of experienced paranormal investigators, mediums and psychics. They have a VIP members club for regular returning guests, offering loyalty discounts and exclusive invitation-only events. They can also host private events for your family and friends. You can contact them on 07 852 998 628 or email them at office@frightnights.co.uk, or take a look at their website at www.frightnights.co.uk, where you can see the many locations they investigate and learn about them and the opportunities they have available. Hundreds of ghost hunters join Fright Nights every month for the most thrilling ghost hunting experiences they'll never forget. If you haven't been on a ghost hunt before, then why not join them to see what it's all about? Why not visit their social media sites for up-to-date information on all the places they visit and to see what's coming up in the future? They look forward to seeing you all soon. Fright Nights Ghost Hunting Events. Remember, only the original will do.
In the October of 2019, Samantha Azzopardi met a French couple who had recently moved to Melbourne and, claiming to be an 18-year-old teenage girl called Saka, and by using false credentials of course, she then moved into the couple's home to become their new au pair to their 2 children, with one aged 4 years old and the other 10 months. She originally got the job by answering their ad for an au pair, giving herself a great backstory and telling the French couple that she came from rich parents who both work as lawyers and did a lot of travelling, even supplying photos of her on board of what I presume was supposed to be one of their yachts. From all accounts, Samantha Azzopardi was pretty good at manipulating her social media, but often the photos of her wouldn't have her whole face in the picture. During these 6 or so months, while Samantha Azzopardi was living and working with the French family in Melbourne as an au pair, she was also at the same time busy working on other separate scams. For example, and according to reports, she was acting as a talent scout who put a couple of notices online claiming that she was looking for young girls to appear in an animation, which resulted in a couple of young girls actually answering the adverts. She would then go to meet with these young girls and get them to perform some very bizarre tasks under the guise of an audition. For example, she would paint bruises on the faces of both of these girls, and then she would tell them to go to the Centrelink office and say that they had been victims of sex trafficking. And from what I have read, and I think you will find it as no surprise, both of these young girls are now deeply traumatised. One day, while still working for the French couple as an au pair in Melbourne, Samantha Azzopardi asked the children's mother if she could take the kids on a picnic. With Mum seeing no reason at the time to say no, the au pair and the 2 youngsters went off out for the day. The children's mother assumed at the time that the picnic would be at the park down the road. However, instead, Samantha Azzopardi took the 2 children to the city of Bendigo, which was around a 2-hour drive from Melbourne, where the family was living. And whilst in Bendigo, Samantha Azzopardi, along with the 2 children in hand, walked into a mental health unit and claimed that she was a 14-year-old teenager and that the 2 kids she was with were the result of her being sexually abused by her uncle. And just to bring a bit of realism into her bewildering fantasy, as well as her drawing some freckles on her own face, she also decided beforehand to buy herself a school uniform and wear it to the mental health unit in a further effort to try and convince people that she was a young student. However, her disturbing story hit pay dirt when the woman behind the counter of the mental health unit just so happened to recognise Samantha Azzopardi's face from some previous press coverage of her other crimes, and so as a result called the police when she was then arrested. After this incident, Samantha Azzopardi was charged with child stealing and theft and property deception, to which, in the May of 2021, she pleaded guilty and received a 2-year sentence. During her trial, it was revealed that following her multiple assessments, Samantha Azzopardi had been diagnosed by the Australian forensic psychiatrist Jacqueline Rakoff as suffering from both the aforementioned borderline personality disorder, or BPD for short, and the rare phenomenon called pseudologia fantastica, which manifests itself in compulsive lying, which was internally motivated by her fantasies to recreate a happy childhood narrative. Wearing prison blue clothes and a matching face mask, and with her blonde hair piled on her head as a bun, and due to her COVID restrictions at the time, Samantha Azzopardi looked at the ground as her sentence played out via a video link. Her defence lawyer, Jessica Willard, told the court that her client had not planned to keep the 2 children, aged 4 and 10 months, from their parents or do them any harm. And although the magistrate did agree that the children had not been harmed physically, he expressed concerns both about the emotional damage done to the family and to the separate case regarding the 2 young girls whom she had manipulated and promised roles in an animated film. The magistrate also acknowledged the concerns over Samantha Azzopardi's mental health and how she had been subjected to severe trauma and abuse in her past. The aforementioned Australian forensic psychiatrist Jacqueline Rakoff recommended that Samantha Azzopardi be released if she received voluntary treatment and case management under specialist services. However, the prison refused to give the necessary referral, but due to her having already spent more than 1.5 years in pre-trial detention, this meant that she may already be eligible for parole. The Irish police detective called David Gallagher, remember him, said that he had been following the Samantha Azzopardi case from afar for the past 8 years, with people every so often sending him clips whenever she turned up somewhere new. After the huge costly hunt that she sparked off in Dublin and Ireland, he said, and I quote, "If I was involved in a similar type of situation again, I would take the same approach again and err on the side of a person being traumatised and vulnerable victim of crime." He continues, and again I quote, "The problem is whether prison is a suitable place for her. Is a mental health institute? Is she in danger to herself, or is she a danger to others? In Ireland she wasn't a danger to herself or others, albeit she was a considerable nuisance." Between the August and October of 2023, after serving a sentence in a New South Wales prison, Samantha Azzopardi then went on to claim that she was a 17-year-old Belgian victim of domestic violence named Hattie Lee, where she managed to obtain $20,000 worth of aid from the Family Violence Support Services. And on another occasion, she led a Perth family into making them believe she was a Russian gymnast whose entire family had died in a murder-suicide incident in France. She also managed to convince a US backpacker named Emily Bamberger that her name was Annika Decker and that she was of Swedish royalty that had been kidnapped when she was a young girl. And in what's probably one of the most extraordinary incidents involving Samantha Azzopardi, she somehow managed to convince social services in Sydney that she was a teen victim, and not only did she get herself enrolled in a school, but she eventually got herself put into a foster home. There have been countless other stories and countless other identities, with some websites estimating that it could be any number between 77 to 100 different personalities fabricated to date from the archives of Samantha Azzopardi over the years. And if I was to go through every tale, I think it would be an infinite exercise. There is an excellent 7-part documentary available wherever you get your podcasts called Finding Samantha by Stolen Sister from the Australian journalist Sharon Davis along with Nicolene Greer from Ireland. And although I have tried to be thorough with this show, it would be unrealistic for me to try to squeeze everything into a 40-plus minute episode. So for more details, I would highly recommend that you give their podcast a listen. I'll put a link to it on my Mark's Unexplained World Facebook group. From what I can gather, Samantha Azzopardi is still out there somewhere, and although she seems to be pretty elusive at the moment, I don't believe she will be hidden for very long. But wherever she is right now, I hope she's seeking some sort of help for her mental health.
Thank you all for taking the time out to listen to this episode of Mark's Unexplained World. In our next episode, show number 156, we are going to be looking at the yogurt shop murders. The Austin yogurt shop killings are an unsolved quadruple homicide which took place at, and I can't believe it's yogurt shop in Austin, Texas, United States, on Friday the 6th of December in 1991. The victims were 4 teenage girls. A Y chromosome match for the perpetrator DNA has been found in a research database of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, but it has declined to reveal the identity of the man by the law of anonymity for donors. And because thousands of men could bear this fragment of DNA, it is unable to identify the individual.
This show was written and researched by myself, Mark Hughes, and proofread and edited by Linda Hughes. The pronunciations of the names and my poor Irish accent was all mine. I apologise for everybody in Ireland. The actors in this episode were Mark Hughes, Linda Hughes and Denise Pooler, with special thanks to Neil Packer and the staff of the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre in Hinckley. And, of course, a big thank you to everyone for listening. We never run out of ideas here at the office for the Mark's Unexplained World podcast. But if you do know of any other intriguing stories under the Unexplained banner that include ufology, hauntings, disasters, and any other sort of paranormal phenomena, as well as true crime and unsolved crime and missing people, just drop me a direct message and I'll see what I can do. I will also include the name of the person who suggested the idea in the end credits of the podcast, if they're happy for me to do so, of course. And again, just to add, if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review and a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you are listening on any of the other podcast platforms, again, give us a like and a follow. I thank you in advance. Mark's Unexplained World, because there's more to the paranormal than meets the third eye. And remember guys, keep it real, because being real is better than being perfect. No AI was used or harmed in the making of this or any other episode of Mark's Unexplained World. This show and all its contents are covered by basic copyright of Mark the Medium.